Am I anxious or am I just stressed out? You've noticed a pattern. You lie awake at night, your brain defying your will to sleep. Worried thoughts parade through your mind instead of sheep. You wake up tired and wishing you could just stay home. You love your friends but keep ending up alone. During your morning drive, you think about what could go wrong that day and say, I knew it, when things don't go your way. You read articles on the internet. You look up on your symptoms and cringe. You finally experience some relief when one diagnosis matches your symptoms better than anything else. Anxiety. But what does it mean to have anxiety? Does it mean you have a disorder? Does it mean you need medication? You might, but you also might just be having a natural reaction to stressful circumstances. Anxiety is a normal human experience, and we're living in anxious and uncertain times. Just because you're feeling anxious does not mean that you have a disorder or need medication. But if you do, finding out is good news. It is possible to fully recover from anxiety with the right care. How can you tell when you need treatment for anxiety? We're here to help. Read on to learn more about the difference between everyday anxiety and clinical anxiety. Normal anxiety versus anxiety disorders. A person walking with arms crossed on a street in the city is displayed on a picture. The most important way to distinguish passing anxiety symptoms from a disorder is how long you have them and how intense they are. Ask yourself these questions. How often do I feel anxious? How intense is the anxiety I feel? How much does my anxiety affect my life? Has anxiety ever caused me serious problems at work or home? How long have I been experiencing symptoms of anxiety and stress? Another term for normal anxiety or everyday anxiety is situational anxiety. It's normal to experience anxiety when you're in a stressful situation. One way you can tell whether your symptoms indicate an anxiety disorder is if the symptoms go away when the situation is over. When you have an anxiety disorder, your symptoms are frequent and chronic. In other words, your anxiety doesn't go away even when nothing stressful is happening. Your anxiety is also out of proportion to the circumstances. You feel just as bad or even worse when you're worrying about something as you do or after the worst case scenario you worried about. One of the most important differences between situational anxiety and an anxiety disorder is how it affects your functioning. People with everyday anxiety are able to cope with and bounce back from anxiety. Their anxiety goes away when stressful situations pass, and any effect it has on their work or home life is minor and temporary. On the other hand, anxiety disorders are chronic and interfere with a person's ability to complete daily tasks. Severe anxiety can cause people to become socially withdrawn and have serious problems at work or school. To learn more about the difference between clinical anxiety and everyday stress, let's meet Margaret and Pauline. Margaret has an anxiety disorder while Pauline does not. Two women staring at a computer screen are displayed, which points at Margaret and Pauline. Margaret and Pauline are both stressed about work. They're having to work overtime. Each has to give a presentation in a few weeks. They're both experiencing classic symptoms of everyday stress and anxiety. They feel tired and irritable. They worry. Their muscles are tense. Both Margaret and Pauline play their favorite music on the way home from work. However, Pauline is able to let more of her stress go during the ride. She goes straight from work to the gym, where she's able to work out even more of her stress. Margaret, on the other hand, is so stressed out that she stopped going to the gym, and while Pauline spends Fridays venting to friends, Margaret has become withdrawn and hasn't spoken to anyone in weeks. Margaret never fully releases her stress. Desperate for relief, she's been drinking more than she wants to drink, but as soon as the alcohol wears off, her mind is flooded with worried thoughts again. Margaret tosses and turns and wakes up in the middle of the night. Pauline falls asleep easily. Pauline is healthy, while Margaret is often sick. Chronic, relentless stress has weakened Margaret's immune system because while it's been worse lately, she's been anxious for years. In the days leading up to the presentation, Pauline's stress increases, while Margaret, she starts drinking a little too much and loses some sleep. She misses a workout, but she makes sure she goes to the gym the next day. She decides not to drink while she's feeling this way because she knows it's making things worse. She works hard and nails a presentation. She gets the promotion. Margaret is just as smart as Pauline, but she can't envision a situation in which she doesn't fail a presentation. Anxiety won't let her imagine anything other than disaster. The stress is so overwhelming that she quits her job without notice a week before she's due to give a presentation. It's the third job she's quit in the past year. What to do if I have an anxiety disorder? A woman on a bed relaxing is displayed in a picture. If you feel more like Margaret than Pauline, you might have an anxiety disorder. One of the first things you should do if you notice that anxiety has been interfering with your everyday life and getting in the way of your goals is to seek professional opinion and get assessed for anxiety. You may be able to get diagnosed and treated for anxiety by your primary care physician. Many people with mild anxiety can recover with the help of an anxiety medication prescribed by their PCP. However, your general care doctor probably does not specialize in mental health and may not be able to diagnose or treat more complicated or severe anxiety. For best results, we recommend setting up an appointment with a mental health professional. You can use our therapist search tool to find an affordable therapist near you. Most therapists can't prescribe medication, but we think it's best to start with one. First, it's usually easier to get an appointment with a therapist than a psychiatrist. It's also possible to successfully treat even severe anxiety disorders without medication, and therapy is frequently recommended as part of the plan for anxiety. If you do need medication, it can be easier to get an appointment with a psychiatrist if you are referred by your therapist. The kind of treatment you'll receive will depend on your diagnosis and the severity of your anxiety. Anxiety disorders you might be diagnosed with include generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and panic disorder. We'll talk more about how those are diagnosed in the next section. For more information on getting started with a therapist, you can read the article How to Choose a Therapist. For more information on treatment options for anxiety, you can read the article on therapy versus medication, which includes the section on therapy versus medication for anxiety. How do doctors diagnose anxiety? A doctor with white wings like that of an angel is displayed on a picture. Some people who get diagnosed with anxiety by their doctors had no idea they were anxious. They thought they were having problems with their heart, stomach, or immune system. Stress and anxiety have physical effects that are easy to mistake for symptoms of medical conditions. The reverse can happen too, which is why it's important to get annual wellness exams from a doctor. Many of the physical symptoms of anxiety are caused by an overactive sympathetic nervous system. This network of brain, nerve, and body responses is often called the fight or flight response. Signs your sympathetic nervous system is active include sweating, restlessness, muscle tension, rapid breathing, shortness of breath, increased heart rate, heart palpitations, trembling or shaking, slowed or blocked digestion. In cases of extreme or heightened anxiety, you might experience a full-blown sympathetic nervous system response. These effects are part of what cause people who are having panic attacks to feel like they are having a heart attack or dying. Symptoms of a panic attack can include any or all of the symptoms listed above. Most of the time, however, anxiety is subtler. You don't always sweat when you're stressed out and your heart rate doesn't always speed up, but you might physically tense up. You might lose your appetite, feel tired, or have trouble sleeping. The symptoms of everyday stress and symptoms of anxiety disorder aren't that different. Symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the primary reference guide for psychiatric diagnosis, include having trouble controlling worried thoughts, feeling restless, keyed up or on edge, having difficulty concentrating, feeling tired a lot of the time, experiencing muscle tension, having trouble sleeping, feeling irritable. These and many other anxiety disorder symptoms are also symptoms of everyday stress and anxiety. You've probably had at least one time in your life where school, work, a relationship, or something else stressed you out so much that you couldn't sleep and worried a lot about it. So, how can you or your doctor tell if you have one of these disorders or are just experiencing the effects of everyday anxiety? One of the criteria listed for almost every DSM disorder is that the condition must cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. In other words, if you're struggling to maintain work and relationship like Margaret, your anxiety is more intense and more likely to indicate a disorder than if you have anxiety symptoms but do the thing anyway, like Pauline. Another important sign of an anxiety disorder is just how heavy and relentless it is. It's not just something you experience for a day or a week. We recommend consulting your doctor or setting up an appointment with a therapist if your symptoms of anxiety make you feel terrible most of the time or have a serious impact on your daily life. While anxiety can derail your life, it's also highly treatable. You can recover fully with the right treatment. So reach out. The help you need may be only a call or a click away. Source: Open Counseling. Here's the curtain raised on the PsyTech Global Agenda. Two pictures in one, where the left side reads PsyTech Global, the agenda 2 to 3 December 2020. The right side is a partial pic of a person's eye. The goal of SightTech Global, a virtual global event on December 2 to 3, 2020, is to gather the world's top experts who are applying advanced technologies, notably AI, to the future of accessibility and assistive tech for people who are blind or visually impaired. Today, we're excited to roll out the most of the agenda. There are another half dozen sessions and breakouts still to come, notably sessions on AI bias and civil rights. What we've discovered over the many weeks of research and conversation is a consistent, strong interest on the part of researchers, technologists, and product and design thinkers to convene and talk over the future, its promises, challenges, and even threats. We're delighted to have top-level talent from virtually every loading technology company, many research universities, and some startups ready for fireside chats and small panel discussions with expert moderators. Some sessions will take questions from our audience as well. When the event dates are closer, we will add dates, times to each of these sessions, as well as announce additional speakers. Register today to get a free pass, and please browse the first edition of the SightTech Global Agenda below. Seeing AI, where does Microsoft Blockbuster app go from here? With ever more powerful computer and data resource available in the cloud, Microsoft Seeing AI, a mobile app, is destined to become a steadily better ally for anyone with vision challenges. Co-founder Shakib Shaikh leads the engineering team that's charting the app's cloud-enabled future. The future according to Orcam. As AI-based computer vision, voice recognition, and natural language processing race ahead, the engineering challenge is to design a device that can perceive the physical world and communicate that information in a timely manner. Amnon Sashua's Orcam, My Eye, is the most sophisticated effort yet to merge those technologies in a seamless experience on a dedicated device. Accessibility from the wheels up, the Waymo self-driving taxi. If people who are blind or visually impaired find Uber and Lyft liberating, imagine how they will feel summoning a self-ride from an app on their mobile phones. But wait, how exactly will they locate the cars, and what happens when they climb in? Presenter Clem Wright is responsible for the self-driving taxi's accessibility, and he will be joined by leadership from two organizations closely involved in that effort, the Lighthouse for the Blind SF and the Foundation for Blind Children. Our AI future is already here. Whether it's Alexa, Tesla, or Facebook, AI is already deeply embedded in our daily lives. Few understand that better than Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, a scientist who developed the first speaker-independent continuous speech recognition system as a PhD student at Carnegie Mellon-led Google in China, and held senior roles at Microsoft and Apple. Today, Dr. Lee runs Cybernation Ventures, a $2 million fund based in China, is president of the Cybernation Artificial Intelligence Institute, and has 50 million followers on social media. The future of AT devices and the companies that make them. Dedicated devices versus accessible platforms, Victor Reader Stream versus iPhones and Alexa. How will IT companies take advantage of a world with cloud data and edge computational power? AI algorithms are more demanding customers than ever. HumanWare, eSight, and APH are already looking far into that future. If the Chechens had screen readers, would they be using keyboard commands? The screen reader is arguably the most consequential digital technology ever for people who are blind or visually impaired. At the same time, screen readers depend on a dizzying array of keyboard commands, and when it comes to reading websites in a browser, they struggle with the ugly reality of poor website accessibility. New technologies may lead the way to better outcomes. Alexa, what is your future? When Alexa launched 6 years ago, no one imagined that the voice assistant would reach into millions of daily lives and become a huge convenience for people who are blind or visually impaired. This fall, Alexa introduced personalization and conversational capabilities that are a step change toward more human-like home companionship. Amazon's Josh Mille and Ann Toth will discuss the impact on accessibility as Alexa becomes more capable. Augmented reality perception. What's the best way to get the message across? It's one thing for an AI-based system to know when it's time to turn left, who came through the door, or how far away the couch is. It's quite another to convey that information in a timely fashion with minimal distraction. Researchers are making use of haptics, visual augmented reality, sound and language to figure out the right solutions. Wayfinding, finding the mark. Map apps on mobile phones are miraculous tools accessible via voice output, but mainstream apps don't announce the detailed location information which people who are blind or visually impaired really want, especially inside buildings and in public transportation settings. Efforts in the US and the UK are improving accessible navigation. Computer vision, AI, and accessibility. What's missing from this picture? For an AI to interpret the visual world on behalf of people who are blind or visually impaired, the AI needs to know what it's looking at, and no less important, that it's looking at the right thing. Mainstream computer vision databases don't do that well yet. SiteTech Global is eager to hear from potential sponsors. We're grateful to current sponsors Amazon, Ford, Google, Microsoft, Mojo Vision, Waymo, Wells Fargo, and HumanWare. All sponsorship revenues go to the non-profit Vista Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, which has been serving the Silicon Valley area for 75 years. Special thanks to the SiteTech Global advisors, Tech Matters Jim Frutcheman, UC Santa Cruz's Roberto Menduzzi, Verizon Media's Larry Goldberg, Facebook Matt King, and Be My Eyes Will Butler, who are playing an invaluable role on this project. Source Tech Crunch.